A real man looks at breasts first. You've probably heard some version of that phrase before. Maybe it was a joke, a boast, a line in a movie, or just a piece of locker room gospel passed down through generations. And, let's be honest, there's an awkwardness to it, isn't there? It feels a little crude, a bit reductive. It simplifies the complex dance of human attraction into a single, almost cartoonish, biological reflex. Yet, beneath the cringe, there's a persistent, nagging question that we rarely say out loud. Is there some truth to it? Have you ever found yourself in an art gallery, standing before a classical nude, and your eyes just drift? Or scrolling through your social media feed, and a certain image makes your thumb pause for a microsecond longer than the others, for reasons you don't consciously direct? It's a quiet, involuntary pull, a magnetic north you didn't choose. It happens before thought, before judgment, before the internal monologue can kick in and say, "Hey, eyes up here." And in that silent moment, a universe of questions is born. Why? Why this specific architecture of the human form? Why does it command such attention, spark such curiosity, and carry such an immense weight of cultural and emotional significance? Welcome to Decode Explained. Today, we are embarking on a journey not just to answer a question, but to solve a genuine human mystery. We are going on an archaeological dig into the deepest strata of the human psyche. Our quest is to understand one of the most powerful yet unspoken forces in human attraction. The question isn't just if breasts are attractive. The fundamental question is why. Is this fascination an ancient biological blueprint? A piece of code written into our DNA for the survival of our species? Or is it a more modern invention, a psychological illusion crafted by culture, where the very act of concealing something is what gives it its power? Are breasts erotic because they are hidden, or are they hidden because they are inherently erotic? This is the great chicken and egg dilemma that has captivated scientists for over a century. To solve it, we need to be more than just observers. We need to become detectives. We'll need to travel back in time to the windswept savannas of our ancestors, then journey deep into the intricate chemical labyrinth of the human brain, and finally, navigate the funhouse mirrors of cultural history. Our goal is not to justify a glance or to pathologize a natural impulse. Our goal is understanding, to replace the awkward silence with a conversation, and to transform a simple, biological reflex into a profound appreciation for the complex story the human body tells about who we are. So, grab your archaeological tools. Our dig site is the human heart, and the first layer is millions of years deep. Let's begin with a startlingly simple fact that sets the stage for everything else. Among the roughly 230 species of primates on Earth, human females are a spectacular anomaly. They are the only ones to develop large, rounded, permanent breasts at puberty and maintain them throughout their adult lives, regardless of pregnancy or lactation. For every other primate, from the chimpanzee to the gorilla, mammary tissue swells only when it's functional, when a mother is nursing her infant. Afterwards, it recedes. But for humans, they are a constant, prominent feature. Evolution is notoriously efficient. It rarely invests energy in creating and maintaining a feature unless it serves a critical purpose. So, what is that purpose? This is where our first set of clues emerges from the dust of evolutionary psychology. The leading theory, and perhaps the most pragmatic one, is that breasts are an honest signal. Picture our ancestral environment millions of years ago. Life was precarious. Resources were scarce. Choosing a mate wasn't about romance in the modern sense. It was a high-stakes biological calculation. A potential partner had to be healthy, well-fed, and capable of seeing offspring through the brutal challenges of infancy. In this high-stakes game, you needed reliable information. You needed, in essence, a biological resume. And breasts, according to this theory, were exactly that. They are primarily composed of adipose tissue of fat. In an environment of frequent famine, having significant fat reserves was the ultimate sign of success. It meant a woman was a capable forager, had access to resources, and wasn't suffering from disease or starvation. It was a visible testament to her health. More than that, the development of breasts at puberty is driven by the hormone estrogen. High estrogen levels are directly linked to higher fertility. So, a pair of full symmetrical breasts acted as a powerful, unambiguous advertisement. I am healthy. I am sexually mature. I have the energetic resources to sustain a pregnancy and produce nutrient-rich milk to ensure our child survives. For an ancestral male brain, being attuned to this signal wasn't a choice. It was a survival imperative. The males who were predisposed to find these features attractive were more likely to choose fertile, healthy mates, have more surviving offspring, and pass on those very same predispositions. It wasn't about conscious thought. It was about a survival program running in the background. But the plot thickens. A second, more flamboyant theory was proposed by the famous zoologist Desmond Morris in his groundbreaking book, The Naked Ape. Morris pointed to another unique human trait. We walk upright. This shift to bipedalism, while freeing our hands, fundamentally changed our social and sexual dynamics. For most primates, sexual signaling and encounters happen from the rear. The female's swollen, colorful buttocks during estrus are the primary visual signal of fertility. But as humans began to walk tall and interact face-to-face, this rear-facing signal became less effective. Morris proposed a stroke of evolutionary genius. The breasts evolved as a form of frontal buttocks mimicry. They became a permanent, forward-facing echo of that ancient fertility signal, perfectly positioned to maintain sexual interest and reinforce the pair bond in our new, face-to-face world. It was, if you will, evolution's greatest marketing, pivot, brilliant rebranding effort to keep the flame of attraction alive in our new, upright posture. There's even a third, more subtle clue known as neoteny. This is the retention of juvenile features in an adult animal. Think of a puppy's big eyes and soft features, which trigger our nurturing instincts. Scientists suggest that the soft, rounded, hairless qualities of breasts are neotenous traits. They tap into a deep-seated male instinct to protect, care for, and provide for a mate, strengthening the emotional bond that is crucial for raising our incredibly dependent human children. These three theories, the honest signal, the buttocks mimicry, and the neoteny clue, are not mutually exclusive. They likely braided together over millennia, forming a powerful, multi-layered evolutionary directive. They paint a picture of an attraction that is anything but shallow. It's a deep, primal recognition of life, health, fertility, and the promise of connection. It's an ancient blueprint for the continuation of our species. So, the bones of our archaeological dig suggest a biological foundation. But bones alone don't tell the whole story. To understand how this blueprint translates into a living, breathing feeling, we must leave the savannah and travel to an even more mysterious landscape: the inner world of the human brain. Let's step into the brain's exclusive internal cocktail bar. When you experience attraction, the bartender, your neurochemistry, gets to work, mixing a very specific cocktail of chemicals. The first drink slid across the counter is a shot of pure, unadulterated dopamine. This is the star of the show, the engine of desire. When your eyes land on something or someone, you find attractive a sight that your evolutionary blueprint has flagged as important. A part of your brain called the ventral tegmental area, VTA, springs into action. It sends a flood of dopamine down a pathway known as the mesolimbic circuit, often called the reward pathway. This is the same circuitry that lights up when you eat a delicious piece of cake, win a game, or achieve a long sought-after goal. It's the neurochemical of motivation, of craving, of go. It produces that intense feeling of wanting, that focused attention, that drive to pursue. It's the brain screaming, "Yes, that! Pay attention to that!" The visual cue of breasts as a potent evolutionary signal is a powerful key that unlocks this dopamine floodgate. But if attraction were only about dopamine, it would be a fleeting, transactional experience. A shot of motivation, and then it's over. This is where our brain's bartender shows its true artistry. It follows up the dopamine shot with a long, slow-sipping drink called oxytocin. If this deep dive into the chemistry of our emotions is mixing up a new cocktail of understanding for you, we'd be honored if you'd subscribe to Mind Decode Explained. Each video is a journey like this one, an exploration into the hidden wiring of our own minds. By subscribing, you're not just joining a channel, you're joining a global community of curious minds dedicated to understanding themselves and each other more deeply. Now, back to our cocktail. Oxytocin is famously known as the cuddle hormone or the bonding hormone, but that nickname undersells its profound power. It is the chemical glue of human connection. A mother's brain is saturated with oxytocin when she holds her newborn child, and even more so during breastfeeding. This chemical bond is what transforms a biological duty into an all-consuming love. It forges a connection of trust and security that is arguably the strongest in the human experience. And here is the beautiful, stunning convergence. The very same body part designed by evolution as the interface for this primary, life-giving oxytocin bond between mother and child is also a focal point in adult romantic intimacy. When partners are physically intimate, when they touch, hug, and feel close, their brains release oxytocin too. This fosters feelings of trust, generosity, and long-term attachment. It's the chemical that helps convert the fiery, dopamine-driven "I want you" into the warm, enduring "I care about you." Another hormone, vasopressin, works in concert with oxytocin, particularly in men, to reinforce this sense of pair bonding and loyalty. So, think of it this way. Dopamine is the spark that gets the fire started. It's the thrill, the chase, the excitement. But oxytocin and vasopressin are the slow-burning logs that allow the fire to last through the night, providing warmth, safety, and a steady glow. The attraction to the breast, then, is not just a trigger for lust. It's a key that unlocks the entire neurochemical suite of human bonding, tapping into our most primal pathways for both desire and devotion. At this point in our dig, the evidence for a biological basis seems overwhelming. We have the evolutionary blueprint and the neurological machinery. It feels like case closed. But hold on. To stop here would be to ignore the loudest, most chaotic, and most powerful voice in the room: culture. If our biology is the engine of the car, culture is the driver. It holds the map, works the pedals, and decides whether to stay on the main road or swerve into a ditch. This brings us to the great counter-argument, the wrapped gift hypothesis. This is the idea that the allure of breasts is not innate, but learned, a product of concealment. The theory posits that anything hidden becomes desirable. It's the mystery, the promise of the reveal, that creates the erotic charge. If breasts were constantly exposed, as they are in some traditional societies, they would become as erotically neutral as an earlobe. This is where we need to talk about a concept from film theory that has profound psychological implications: the male gaze, a term coined by scholar Laura Mulvey in 1975. Mulvey argued that in most of Western culture, especially cinema, the world is often presented from the perspective of a heterosexual male viewer. Women are frequently framed as passive objects of this gaze, their bodies broken down into parts to be looked at. The gaze is a cultural director, telling us how to look, what to focus on, and what it all means. Let's take a quick, dizzying tour through history to see this director at work. The ideal breast has been a constantly moving target. Prehistoric figurines like the Venus of Willendorf celebrated massive pendulous breasts, symbolizing an overwhelming abundance of fertility. The ancient Greeks, however, preferred smaller, high-set athletic breasts. Fast forward to the Victorian era, where corsets created a dramatic shelf of cleavage, pushing the breasts up and forward as the singular focus of female beauty. Then, in a complete reversal, the 1920s flapper era celebrated a boyish, flat-chested silhouette, with women binding their chests to fit the fashion. The 1950s brought back the voluptuous sweater girl ideal, epitomized by stars like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield. Today, we live in an age of the Instagram ideal, often a surgically enhanced look that is high, round, and seemingly gravity-defying, an image that is biologically rare but culturally ubiquitous. This historical whiplash proves one thing definitively: culture is an incredibly powerful shaper of desire. It takes our raw, biological predisposition and molds it, exaggerates it, sometimes suppresses it, and sells it back to us as an ideal. And this has a profound psychological cost. When a culture relentlessly promotes a single, narrow, and often unattainable ideal, it can lead to widespread body dissatisfaction, anxiety, and the dangerous phenomenon of self-objectification. This is when women begin to view their own bodies from that third-person critical perspective of the male gaze, internalizing the idea that their value is tied to their appearance. It's a psychological burden that can lead to eating disorders, depression, and a persistent sense of not being good enough. So, we're left in a state of tension. The biological evidence is strong. The cultural evidence is undeniable. How can we possibly reconcile them? How do we know if the engine or the driver is really in charge? To answer this, we need a natural experiment, a place where we can isolate the variables. And for this, we must return to our heroes from the start of our journey, the research team led by Michal Stefanczyk, and their trip to the highlands of Papua to study the Dani people. Their study was nothing short of brilliant. It was the scientific equivalent of finding a Rosetta Stone for human desire. Remember the setup: a community where, for generations, women were bare-chested. It was the norm. Then, a cultural shift introduced the practice of covering up. This created two distinct groups of men: an older generation who grew up with constant, unremarkable exposure to breasts, and a younger generation who grew up as the new norm of concealment was taking hold. If the wrapped gift cultural theory were correct, the results should have been black and white. The older men should have been desensitized, finding breasts far less erotic. The younger men, living with the new mystery of concealment, should have found them far more arousing. The researchers conducted their interviews. The data came in, and the results were a bombshell. There was no significant difference between the groups. The men who had seen breasts every single day of their formative years found them just as sexually arousing as the men for whom they were more often covered. Both groups reported that touching their partner's breasts was a regular and important part of sexual intimacy. The idea that constant exposure would neutralize their erotic power was proven false. The wrapping paper, it turns out, was not what made the gift desirable. The gift was desirable all on its own. This study is a landmark. It provides the strongest evidence to date that the fundamental sexual interest in breasts is a robust, evolved, biological trait, not a mere artifact of cultural conditioning. Culture, our wild and unpredictable driver, is not creating the attraction from scratch. It is working with a pre-existing, powerful biological impulse. So now, at last, we can step back from our dig site and see the whole picture. We have unearthed the ancient biological bones, and we have cataloged the glittering, ever-changing cultural artifacts, and now we can see how they fit together. The great debate of nature versus nurture is a false dichotomy. The truth, as it so often is more nuanced and beautiful. It is not nature versus nurture. It is nature via nurture. Our biology provides the universal theme, the deep, resonant chord of attraction. But culture is the composer who writes the specific melody. It dictates the tempo, the volume, and the style. The biological predisposition is the engine, but culture is the steering wheel, the gas pedal, and the brake. It directs, manages, and gives meaning to our innate urges. The attraction is real and biological. The way we express it, idealize it, celebrate it, or shame it, that is the work of culture. And this brings us to the final, and most important, part of our journey. We have spent so much time analyzing the gaze, the attraction to the breast. To complete our understanding, we must now do something radical. We must look away from the gaze and turn our attention to the lived experience. We must shift our perspective from the admirer to the person. For a woman, her breasts are not an abstract symbol of fertility. They are a deeply personal, complex part of her own story. Think of the young girl entering puberty, her body changing in ways that are both exciting and terrifying, suddenly aware of a new kind of attention. Think of the woman standing in front of a mirror, grappling with the relentless pressure of cultural ideals, her relationship with her own body, a daily negotiation between self-acceptance and self-criticism. Think of the profound, life-altering experience of breastfeeding. For a mother, her breasts become a source of life-giving nourishment, the epicenter of an unparalleled bond of love and connection with her children, experience that is primal, exhausting, and transcendent all at once. Think of the woman who finds a lump, the cold fear of a breast cancer diagnosis, and the journey of treatment. Think of the survivor who has undergone a mastectomy, and her courageous path to redefining her identity, her femininity, and her relationship with a body that has fought a battle. This is the human truth that gets lost in a simple discussion of attraction. The breast is a site of pleasure and pain, of pride and insecurity, of life and the threat of its loss. To see it only as an object of desire is to read the cover of a book and ignore the epic novel written inside. The work of researchers like Brené Brown has taught us about the power of vulnerability, courage, and shame. And perhaps nowhere is this trifecta more present than in our relationship with our own bodies. It takes immense courage to inhabit our own skin with kindness and authenticity in a world that is so quick to judge, categorize, and commodify. So, where have we arrived at the end of our great archaeological dig? We began with a crude, common phrase and have journeyed to the very origins of our species, through the chemical pathways of our brains, across the shifting sands of history, and into the sacred space of personal experience. We've learned that the magnetic pull is not a shallow whim. It is a deep, biological echo of our species' relentless drive to survive and connect. We've learned that this innate drive is then taken up by culture, which acts as a powerful and often chaotic director, shaping our desires into specific ideals. And finally, we've been reminded that beyond the science and the sociology, there is a human being, a life story in which this one part of the body plays a complex, emotional, and deeply personal role. The next time you feel that quiet, involuntary pull of the eyes, or ponder the immense cultural weight placed on this one part of the human form, perhaps you can see it with a new sense of wonder. Not just as a reflex, but as a glimpse into the entire, breathtaking story of being human. A story of survival, a story of connection, a story of life itself. The true, enduring attraction is not just in the shape of the form, but in the incredible, resilient, and beautiful life it signifies.